Hello, welcome to Access. I'm Rob. Joining us is Dave.
Hello.
Dave, we've just had our annual hands-on with the new PES, PES 2018.
Yes, we did.
Normally it's quite a boring 0-0 between you and I when we play our annual PES, isn't it?
Maybe 3 matches and you'll sneak 1 goal.
Yeah.
And that'll be it. I think we had, how many goals did we have this time? 3 matches again and maybe...
6
6
goals.
or 7
Loads
goals?
of goals.
Yeah.
But basically this video is going to be going through 5 changes that you've been waiting for, basically.
And we've been waiting for.
And that we have been waiting for.
Yeah.
The first of those changes, I've got my notes here, we're talking about the overall presentation of the game. And this covers everything, not just the visual fidelity of the graphics, because that has been updated. The players look better, the pitch looks better, stadiums look better, they've got the inside of the tunnels and everything. But we're talking about the UI.
Yeah. And I think this is probably one of the first things people notice about PES, and they said, we had a presentation about it, and they said, you know, it tends to look a little bit tired, looks a bit dated, and I think that is something that puts people off, particularly when you look at FIFA, which is so much more sort of modern. And so PES has a massive UI refresh this year. The presentation of the menus and all that kind of stuff is totally changed, but also within actually playing a match, the presentation of the match is much more like television, isn't it?
Yeah, it's far more broadcasted. To give you an example, I had a shot, it went wide, and we got a little stat box appearing on the side with 3 players from the game, how many shots they'd had, how many shots were on target.
Yeah, exactly.
You've also got things like pass completion stats will come up and pop up.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Like you would have in a real match.
All kind of dynamic, and also it's using real photos of the players, and that includes the sort of the team management screen as well. It's now, you know, it's always a bit of a problem. We've had it before, and sometimes they've experimented with using those sort of rendered faces, and this time they've gone with photos, and it's just a lot cleaner, a lot more easy to read and manage. So a whole new presentation refresh, which is exciting.
It makes it look like you're watching real football.
Exactly.
Which is really exciting. The second point is the player movement.
Yes.
Now, it's had a massive overhaul. We saw a presentation and they were talking about how PES is on like a 3-year cycle. And 2015, 2016 and 2017 were kind of incremental refinements of like the previous year.
They were saying that basically this is the sort of biggest change to PES since PES first came to PS4.
Yeah.
You know, this is, and the games after that, although they were refining, they were really sort of like just little stepping stones.
Yeah.
And they've been working on this year's PES for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, almost in the background, with everything they've been learning from those increments. And we go to we've been to a lot of PES presentations over the years, and every year, of course, they have changed the game and they tell you that they've improved this and that, and there's a different feel. But I don't think I've ever played a PES before where that has been so true. Where we immediately
from the kickoff,
like, this is so different.
It does feel different,
and I thought so much better.
Yeah, and we're talking about like specifically just the movement of the players.
Yes.
PES has always been quite good at allowing you to change direction and change the speed of your play just by using the left stick. You don't have to use many modifiers if you want to beat a man, but that this year has really been pushed up.
Completely overhauled.
No.
I mean, I just found I was able to do things like it was much more, the players were much more in tune with my brain, and they were just moving in a really human way. And you know, like sometimes you mess up with the stick, and there was no sort of, you know, messing up with animations. The players were taking it as an input and like sort of shimmying and moving their bodies around and stuff in a completely believable and natural way. Same thing for going into sprinting, like accelerating.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that this year's PES, the pace feels a bit slower.
Yeah.
But it's made, I think that's made it much more like real football.
It feels really reactive as well. Like there were situations where I was like, oh no, I think I've overrun the ball there.
Yeah.
And so you quickly pull the stick back in, and normally it'd take your player a while to adjust to the animation and come out of one animation and go into another. But this year it felt like if you do something wrong, you can react to it, push the stick the other way, and your player will instantly move in that direction.
Yeah.
It felt like the players were moving at the same time you were thinking. You didn't have to think 2 or 3 steps ahead, which you have had to do in PES in the past. If you want to put a cross in, you're like, okay, I know my player's not going to react to this command for another 2 or 3 sprints.
Yeah.
So you'll put it in now. But it definitely feels like they're bang on it this year.
Yeah, I just feel much more in tune. I felt like the players were moving exactly as I expected, and that kind of like, then you're able to think about other things in the game, you know, like that's taken away. As soon as anything happens that you don't expect, which might be the case in sort of like previous PESs, you're kind of like suddenly you're like annoyed and sort of shocked, and the game goes to pot. And from what we played this year, there was none of that. And like I just think slowing down the pace, it made everything feel more deliberate.
Yeah.
And I mean, you scored some amazing goals. Like there were some really good like team goals with lovely passing and things. I think it just felt, I don't know, so much different,
it's
so much better.
Pleasing.
Yeah.
Point number 3, we're talking about the physicality of it. So we've just talked about the movement. It feels like the ball and the players finally are now separate physical entities that realistically react with each other when they impact each other. And we had instances where you were Barcelona and Messi had the ball and he was running with it and the ball took maybe a slight deviation the other way, and instead of Messi just kind of going through a weird animation loop where he's like, oh, where's the ball? He kind of adjusted his feet like Messi would actually do in real life, while keeping the momentum, while keeping his speed. And when I was playing as Barcelona, I was controlling Rakitic, and he received a pass from his unfavoured side. And instead of doing that weird thing where you have to control it and then turn around, he kind of he put his foot over it and let it come underneath him. Yeah. So he didn't have to change his momentum. Again, like a real footballer would. And all these things are contextual, and you don't have to do anything to do them. They just naturally occur in the flow of the play.
It's absolutely true. I think you've like nailed it by saying that the players and the ball feel like a different thing this time. Like so often in past PESs, like you would pass the ball and other players wouldn't react to that because the pass wasn't intended for them, even though if they were close by or something like that. And as you say, like receiving the ball from an unfavoured side or just in an unexpected way, the players now feel like they're able to think on their feet and like react to that and in a believable and like just normal way, which just is fantastic. And also shielding the ball from they feel aware now of the players around them. They feel aware of where the danger's coming from, where a tackle's coming from. If someone's coming in, they're kind of automatically sort of like putting their body in the way of them between the ball and the opposing player.
Which is going to be good if you want to play with a big striker like Ibrahimovic or a Giroud, who often in PES, if your striker isn't nippy and quick, that kind of means your striker's rubbish.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I think players like Giroud and Ibrahimovic this is going to be their liberation. They're finally going to come into their own, which is, about time.
I mean, this is a bonus one. Just whilst we're talking about players who are quick, Usain Bolt is going to be
in the game.
In the game, so
presumably with speed stats of 100.
Well, they did actually say they did confirm he will be the fastest player in the game.
Well,
so
obviously, he's the fastest human being in history.
We should confirm that's just in the My Club area of the game. So he's not, he's not going to be.
If you pre-order the game, then you get Usain Bolt in My Club.
Yes,
which is great. Yeah. Point number 4. Loads of little changes that they've implemented that fans have been asking for. For instance, one of the most noticeable ones is when you're taking free kicks and corners and set pieces, there's no arrow anymore.
No.
And that's been a thing that players have been asking for a while. Get rid of those guides.
Yeah.
And
I think not only the actual guide, because you could turn that off in the previous game, but it's more just how it just plays out and like what the button you're pressing is doing. So it was more about power rather than kind of like height or trajectory. They were saying basically how they've tried to go back to how it was in like PES 6. Like massive fan favourites. They wanted so free kicks and corners are much more like in that style. Rather than they have been. It's a completely different change to how it has been in the past couple of PES.
And really importantly, penalties. Talking about this, penalties have changed. They talked about it in the presentation. I was lucky enough to win a penalty when you came clattering into me in the box.
It was on the edge of the box.
In previous PES games, in the last 3 anyway, I've had real kind of trouble getting accuracy and power combined. Like quite often you have to tentatively tap it to make sure it goes. If you put too much power, it just goes spinning off into row Z. I had a penalty with Neymar, and again there's no little arrows. You hold the power down. You aim in the direction you want to aim. If you push the stick too far, you'll aim too far and it'll go wide. And I managed to hit it in the top corner with thunderous power, which is something I've not been able to do with a penalty in PES since, PES 6 probably.
I mean, I was on the receiving end of that penalty, so I hate to admit it, but it was smashed into the top corner. There was no way I was getting to that.
I mean, you went the right way.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
you went the right way.
No way I was getting to that. So, and it just, I mean, that's great, isn't it? That's what you want. Like that's like such a good moment. Don't want a little tippy-tappy penalty.
Penalties should be quite easy for professional players to score. You shouldn't have to do anything remotely complicated. You should just be able to hit it and then for it to at least, go on target.
And you should be able to score with some pizzazz, not just if you want to definitely score, you have to tap it in. No.
Yeah.
So that's much better.
And our final point, which I think is something fans have been clamouring for a long, long time. They said in the presentation a lot of focus is going into PES 2018's online modes and making sure that is improved. We didn't get to play online today, we just played local 2-player. But it is good to know that we've got some more robust online PES play coming, because that is something that a lot of PES players feel PES is not on the same level as FIFA in that regard.
No.
It's fair to say.
I think I really did get the impression they made a big point about listening to the fans, and this is an area I think in particular that people have been not so happy with is the online, and they've definitely listened this year with all the other areas of the game. I think they've really listened to what people wanted, and they've worked on those areas, and they say online is no different. One of the big things that they're going to be doing is in July, I think there's going to be an online beta for PES, and they're going to be using that data. Like they say, and this isn't a marketing thing. We're going to be using the data from the online beta. We're going to be testing the servers. We're going to be implementing it into the final release of the game. So
we can help make PES better.
You can all help make PES better. There's also going to be some new online modes as well.
3v3 online now.
3v3, 2v2s there, then a whole loads of stuff like that. Also, I think they're really interested in pushing the competitive side, the esports side, working with UEFA and to put together some competitions with big money prizes. So I think this year Konami and PES is just having a really big push on the online to make it much better and to make it what the fans have dreamed, really, because that's what they want.
It needs to be. Well, there we go. There's a quick rundown of 5 changes you have been asking for. We're going to be capturing PES 2018 for the first time next week, I believe, so do stay tuned for that. And, of course, do stay tuned because we have absolutely loads more coming up from E3.